Coming to you from the Web3.com Ventures office, it's The Round Trip with John Sienna. I'm a VC and former founder investing at the edge of crypto, AI, and frontier tech. Here's what we're tracking this week on The Round Trip. Chaos in crypto, the rise of AI, and macro on the move. From Silicon Valley to Singapore, we're mapping momentum, questioning the consensus, and surfacing the signal. Let's dive in with our co-host. Joining us from the intersection of alpha and analysis, she's the degen of DeFi and helps top projects translate tech into traction at P8 News. From Taipei to your timeline, it's Cassidy Wong. Together, we're leveraged up and we're making the round trip.
Well, so there's big moves on Monday, May 12th. The US and China, they agreed to temporarily scale back on tariffs. The US is dropping tariffs to 30% on Chinese goods, and China is cutting tariffs to 10% on US goods. So this is good news. And markets absolutely loved it. Stocks, they went vertical. Dow Jones surged 1,100 points, and the S&P 500 jumped more than 3%. Apple, Tesla, and other China-exposed tech names, they actually led the rally as well. U.S. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent called it a reset, confirmed a broader negotiations that are on the way in the coming weeks. But let's also get the record straight. A 90-day tariff truce isn't really a peace, it's just a pause. But it's also enough to breathe life into risk assets. So as you may know it, crypto continues to respond like a hyperactive pressure gauge for global sentiment. So 1 minute we're testing all-time highs, and the next we're also doing profit taking and waiting on macro data to drop.
Yeah, it was a short trade war, and already the S&P is back in positive territory year to date, with the Dow Jones and Nasdaq trading at less than 1% down. This week, Trump's Middle East tour illustrated how geopolitics are evolving, with AI chips, data centers, and defense deals now all part of the same playbook for power and influence. In Saudi Arabia, the first part of Trump's trip, he was welcomed with a lavish state reception. There was fighter jets escorting him and traditional ceremonies. Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman signed a strategic economic partnership featuring a $142 billion defense deal and a $600 billion Saudi commitment to invest in U.S. industries such as energy, technology, and infrastructure over the next 4 years. This visit included significant AI and semiconductor agreements with companies like Nvidia and AMD partnering with Saudi initiatives. Politically, Trump also met with Syrian President Ahmed al-Shahar, and this marked the first high-level talk between U.S. and Syria in over 25 years. Trump, at the GCC conference, he announced that he'd be lifting all sanctions off Syria and giving them a fighting chance. And this is a huge shift in U.S. foreign policy, and it's even encouraging Syria to normalize relations with Israel, its neighbor. These developments underscore a broader strategy to reshape alliances and economic ties in the Middle East.
Yeah. Did you see, besides rolling out the red carpet for Trump, the kingdom also brought out the golden arches and arranged for a mobile McDonald's unit to be present near the royal court. It's actually being dubbed as the McDiplomacy online.
Yeah, I think Trump's everyone's favorite fry guy, and it's quite funny and a stark contrast from how the kingdom treated President Biden. There's that infamous fist bump, but now, Trump, when he's leaving, he's pumping fists with the crown prince.
Yeah. Actually, President Trump, he recently landed in Qatar and walked away with multi-billion-dollar trade and defense deals. He actually did the largest purchase order for Boeing jets But it wasn't just for economics. He hinted that Qatar could also help mediate with Iran, even as he reinforced the US red line. So going after that is up. The stock is up 30% in just 1 month, rebounding sharply ever since the China paused the jet deliveries as part of the trade war. The surge caps a dramatic turnaround for the aerospace giant. Just a year ago, Boeing CEO he stepped out amid the renewed scrutiny over the safety lapses. But now, with order flowing in from both Asia and the Gulf, the company is regaining altitude as a symbol of the U.S. Industrial strength abroad.
Yeah, I think Qatar is playing a crucial role in the Iran negotiations. Trump's, he's reinstated his maximum pressure campaign just back in February, and it marks a full force return to his hardline strategy: deny Iran a nuclear weapon, disrupt its missile program, and choke off support from regional proxies. The administration has reimposed sweeping sanctions through an executive order and a national security presidential memorandum targeting Iranian oil exports, their banking sector, shipping, and insurance, all aimed at driving Tehran's revenue to zero. And you have to, you know, see like Iran is definitely watching and seeing how Trump treats his friends versus foes. And while Gulf allies are securing AI chip deals, getting defense upgrades, and investment partnerships, Iran's facing deepening isolation, and it's really hurting their economy. So the message is clear: fall in line or get cut off. In Trump's last stop in his Middle East tour in the UAE, he made history at the Sheikh Zayed Grand Mosque, which shut down for the first time ever for someone to visit. And yeah, this symbolism came with substance. The US and UAE announced a preliminary deal allowing the Emiratis to import 500,000 Nvidia AI chips annually beginning this year. And these chips are among the world's most advanced, and they'll power massive AI data centers in the UAE. And it's also largely operated by US cloud providers. So there's some partnership between US firms and the UAE, and it also benefits some of the Emirati AI firms.
Actually, have you heard the U.S. Commerce Department? They also revealed a new U.S. UAE AI acceleration partnership. It's a joint framework to scale AI infrastructure across the Gulf. Trump and Sheikh Mohammed, they jointly unveiled the plans for a 5 gigawatts AI campus. It is one of the largest outside of the United States. So this also shows us the UAE's ambition to become one of the top tier AI innovation hub. It's actually very worth highlighting that the UAE they had already pledged 1.4 billion in US investments over the next decade. So it's sort of like a prelude to what's quickly becoming one of the world's most consequential tech alliances.
Yeah, just last week we predicted that Trump would use AI chips as part of strategic leverage in the trade negotiations, and we're already seeing that play out very fast. And yeah, he's striking high stakes deals with allies like Saudi Arabia and the UAE to cement tech and diplomatic ties. Close in the region, some major news from the Kurdistan Workers' Party, also known as the PKK. On May 12th, they announced that they would disband, ending a 4-decade armed struggle against Turkey. The decision followed a call from their jailed leader, Abdullah Öcalan, and was welcomed by Erdogan and the UN as a step forward towards regional stability. Steps towards peace in the region are already taking shape with the Kurdish forces in Syria. Once locked in a conflict with the Assad region, now they're beginning to integrate into the Syrian army under a new reconciliation framework.
But this is definitely a major step towards regional peace. Meanwhile, over in South Asia, economic incentives brought India and Pakistan back to the table. Talks resumed this week, focusing on reducing the border tensions to unlock bilateral trade. It's still early. But, a ceasefire would be meaningful implications for regional stability, at least for now. While India and Pakistan are cautiously exploring how they ease border tensions and revive trade through renewed ceasefire talks, the war with Russia and Ukraine is also looking to de escalate through diplomatic talks, with Moscow agreeing to meet with Kyiv this week.
Yeah, while hopes remain low for a breakthrough, it's notable. This is the first time in over a year that both sides are sitting at the same table, and though not at the same level because Putin declined to attend, instead he sent a lower level delegation. President Zelensky showed up in person, underscoring Ukraine's push towards rallying international support and shifting the narrative from a stalemate to a diplomatic initiative. To pressure Russia, the EU just dropped its 17th round of sanctions at the same time. So economic pressure continues even as the battlefield lines harden.
Yeah, so well, that's a lot of going on geopolitically, but I also want to talk about the classic crypto week this week. It's we this week we hit over. I think Bitcoin hit over 105,000 dollars. It's big moves. High hopes for the market, and then also profit taking for the sentiment as well. The fear and greed index hit 73, which is a signal of potential overheating, but institutional appetite hasn't waned. Perhaps it's one of the biggest news of the week. Coinbase will officially enter the S&P 500 on May 19th. This will be a major milestone, not just for the company, but for crypto as an asset class. Inclusion in the index will mean a passive investment funds, funds and ETFs that track S&P. It will now be required to buy and hold coin. So unlocking potentially billions in inflows. It's a new level of legitimacy and another clear sign that crypto is moving from the fringe to the financial mainstream. Actually, funny, ironically, is that Coinbase will replace Discover Financial Services in the S&P 500 on May 19th as well. It's marking a symbolic shift from legacy finance to the digital asset era.
In other news on Wall Street, eToro priced its NASDAQ debut at $52, beating expectations. This isn't just a retail trading platform going public, it's a crypto forward fintech company signaling that markets now reward crypto exposure. The IPO was a litmus test for how public investors feel about crypto native platforms in a regulated equity wrapper, and the result was a strong thumbs up.
And then Robinhood, they also dropped 179 million to acquire a Canadian crypto platform called WonderFi. A lot of the analysts on the market, they say that the move, it could actually boost their revenue up by around 10%. It's also a statement. Robinhood is not just dabbling in crypto; they're actually doubling down on their crypto sector. So with WonderFi under the belt, Robinhood gains access to Canada's growing crypto market and a compliant infrastructure it can scale. It's another line erased between TradeFi and DeFi.
Globally, the tide is rising. Thailand announced plans to launch a government-approved investment-grade crypto token available to the public. This isn't a CBDC, this is an actual token investment vehicle, regulated, public, and aimed at everyday investors. For Southeast Asia, it's a major moment showing how emerging markets may leapfrog directly into crypto-native financial rails rather than depending on legacy financial infrastructure. Meanwhile, in the US, lawmakers are approaching consensus on a Senate bill aimed at establishing a regulatory framework for stablecoins, Genius Act. Following a failed vote last week, negotiations have progressed, with legislators indicating that the bill is 90% there. The proposed legislation seeks to provide clear guidelines for stablecoin issuers and addresses concerns related to consumer protection and financial stability. Coinbase has even been at the forefront of the push, with CEO Brian Armstrong traveling to DC this past week to personally advocate for the bill, meeting with senators and regulators to make the case clear, for innovation-friendly rules. Ryan Suckless, notably the founder of Masari Crypto, said that The incentives may not align though for Coinbase because as Coinbase could benefit from the continued great areas, he also noted that Democrats might want to hold off on pushing for crypto to further it as a political issue against Republicans. So while some disagreements remain, particularly around the oversight and compliance mechanisms, the bipartisan momentum reflects a growing recognition in DC that the digital asset space can't remain in a legal limbo. Lawmakers are optimistic that the continued dialogue and sustained pressure from industry leaders, the bill could soon advance through the Senate.
I think it's easy to look at the headlines, the sanctions, the send-offs, the volatility, and see chaos. But if you zoom out just a bit, there's actually a bigger picture forming. It's not collapse, but it's acceleration. From Gulf nations getting into DI diplomacy to stable coins bills finally making noise in DC, a new global system is also slowly taking shape. It's not just governments and banks anymore. It's tech, crypto, protocols, and partnerships. The lines are blurring, so between TradeFi and DeFi, East and West. So everything's moving really fast. But here's the upside. For builders, investors, and people paying attention, this might be just one of the most exciting window we have had in a very long time. Chips are now the new oil, protocols are the new infrastructure, and policies finally trying to play catch up. If you're in the games, whether you're building, investing, or just keeping tabs, now's the time to stay curious, stay sharp, and also stay in the loop. Because whether you're on chain or on the ground, the road trip is just getting started. Well, that's it for the round trip today. If you got value from the breakdown, drop us a like, and see you next week. Same time, same loop.
Bye.